Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of the Tune In podcast with Sarah and Harry. And how on earth we've made it this far, I don't quite know. My name is Harry Badger.
And my name is Sarah White.
And in this show, as you know by now, this is all about the world of music in all its various guises. And just before we start, thank you very, very much for all of the support that you gave on the first couple of episodes. We hope to be continuing this for a long, long time and to shorten it down to about an hour or so, to keep you guys as entertained as possible without it going on for too long.
But before we get started, we'd like to sort of put out a disclaimer that we are filming this or recording this on one of the hottest days, I think right here, right now. It's about 32 degrees and I am sweating. So we just want to apologise if we sort of run out of steam or something throughout the podcast, but we're really, really trying. So I hope you
we
enjoy
are.
it.
We promise you we're trying. I'm currently recording with my windows shut because of external noise outside. So we'll try our best. We'll try our best, but hopefully you'll forgive us this one time. Should be okay. But if it does sound a bit low energy, please do forgive us.
I mean, next week's cooling down, so we should be back to our regular selves next week. It's just too much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it is a little bit.
This week was my decision of the theme, and I decided that we'd pick music associated with places. This could mean, a town, a city, a country, a planet, even a region on a planet, maybe. We'll get into that later. And including geographical places. I want to make that clear because one of mine's a bit dodgy, but I'm including geographical places like mountains and lakes and stuff in places as well. So, yeah, without further ado, shall we get into Harry's top 5?
Yeah, we'll get into the top 5 for me. I thought also, because I was very angry at the songs that I didn't choose, I thought I'd put them as honourable mentions, but this time we're going to do them as completely passing. We're not going to go into them. My passing honourable mentions are Amsterdam by Nothing But Thieves, great indie rock song. The 59th Street Bridge song by Simon and Garfunkel. They've come out for the second week in a row. And if I hadn't talked about this piece last week, Mars from the Planets might very well have featured, but I did talk about it last week, so I thought I'd look elsewhere.
Yeah.
To different locations, you might say. So, my first song is actually one which doesn't have the name of the song featured in any of its lyrics, but it is Machu Picchu by The Strokes. Now, of course, this is about the Peruvian mountain Machu Picchu. Well, it's not about the Peruvian mountain Machu Picchu, but it's named after it. With the lyric of, I'm just trying to find a mountain I can climb, giving way to, the mountain reference, hence why it's called Machu Picchu. Now, I have enjoyed this song for a very, very long time. It actually featured on a soundtrack of some kind, which is where I first got exposed to it. But I love its riffs, its interplay between the guitars, and the vocals just work really well. It's kind of a critique of modern society, where it's about the press giving in to, kind of portraying the things which shouldn't really be portrayed, but then turning a blind eye to matters such as violence and the fact that it's all life in the shade, so to speak. I don't know if that was what they meant with it, but that's how I see it.
I mean, at a first listen, it was hard to hear the message. It was quite a lively song, and I just personally enjoyed listening to it. But I guess my question for you kind of links into the fact that it doesn't actually reference it in the song. Just simply, why do you think it was called that? Is it something to do with, like, the metaphors that relate to the theme that you previously mentioned? Do you think?
Well, I think it's the Strokes actually have a common theme throughout a lot of their songs, where they don't actually say the name of the song title in their song. For example, Reptilia or Under Cover of Darkness. However, there is, as I said earlier, there is a lyric of, I'm just trying to find a mountain I can climb in the chorus. So I guess, it's quite a tenuous link, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
But Machu Picchu is most definitely a mountain.
Yes.
We can't deny that. It is a mountain. It fits the mountain criteria. And so they basically they must have just gone through like a random mountain generator and picked whichever one came up first.
Fair enough.
But it does have a nice ring to it as a song name.
Yeah, it does.
I wouldn't want to have I wouldn't want to have a song called like Mount Everest, because it just doesn't have a cool name.
I don't know, I definitely agree that Machu Picchu has a nice like ring to it as a name of a song. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, I think it is mostly just because of the fact that there is that lyric of the mountain reference, and I think they just got it from that. But it's not an uncommon theme in Strokes songs to not say the title within the lyrics of their songs. So
yeah,
that's why potentially it might have featured, but the title is not the reason why it features. It's the song overall, and it's just a great song to jam along to. Especially with the bridge sections in between the chorus and the verse with the guitar interplays and the riff. I always find that's brilliant fun. It's great fun, especially when it shifts between the two chords and it switches around for the second breakdown. I don't know if you noticed that. So it went from
something I
one,
noticed. Yeah, I wrote that down.
Yeah, it went from chord 1 to 4, and then in the second time around it went from chord 4 to chord 1, which I thought was quite a cool switch up. So that's definitely something which I have enjoyed about that song. And Machu Picchu, I definitely recommend going and listening to the Strokes if you haven't done so already, because a lot of their stuff is brilliant. But this album I think is underrated in the Strokes catalogue, and this is one of the highlights from that album, unquestionably. So we now move on to my number 2, I guess. This is actually, I'm going to say this is in no particular order, unlike last week, which it was. This one is in no particular order. But my second one is it's actually my first jazz song that I've mentioned in this entire podcast. So please give me a round of applause at home for that. And it is Dizzy Gillespie's A Night in Tunisia. Now, the reason why this holds a special place in my heart especially is because this is going to be a song that was played by the second year Manchester University Jazz Ensemble, but unfortunately as a result of the current health crisis we were unable to perform it live in March when we wanted to. We did perform it, I believe, at Band on the Wall, and it has a great trumpet solo which was played by one of my good friends, Luca. Shout out to you. And it's a song which I played on the Barry sax, and it's got a great bass riff going on in the arrangement that we played. But the original I think is more hardcore jazz than the one which we played. It's definitely got a Latin feel, but I think the one which I heard personally, I think it was a 1942 recording, it's very complex harmonically and very unstable. But I enjoy playing it personally, or certainly the arrangement of it, and that's why it features in my top 5 list.
As a lot of people probably know, I'm not a huge jazz fan per se, but I enjoyed listening to this for most of the time. I enjoyed the solos, and I enjoyed especially his notes at the end. Clearly, obviously, he's a very talented trumpeter. We don't need to say that, but
that just goes without saying.
Yeah, exactly. I just wondered why it's called A Night in Tunisia, where if there's a Tunisian influence musically, or...
Now here's the thing, surprisingly enough, I actually did research on this song. This is one of the only songs I actually did research on. So I do actually know that it was originally meant to be called Interlude, but someone just arbitrarily suggested A Night in Tunisia as the name, and it stuck. But in 1961, I believe, Ella Fitzgerald, one of the most iconic jazz vocalists of all time, if not the most iconic, she added lyrics to the song to make it seem as though it was about a night in the desert in Tunisia.
Oh.
So therefore, whilst it was originally meant to just be called Interlude, it gained a name, and then it gained the vocal fame as a result of Ella Fitzgerald adding quite cool lyrics which fit perfectly with the melody. Like I ran it through in my head and I thought, oh yeah, this actually works unbelievably well with the main melody line.
Yeah.
So whilst it was originally not meant to be called that, it ended up being called that, and thankfully it wasn't called Interlude because it finds its way onto my list.
Yeah, otherwise, couldn't be included. Not a place.
Unless we did a list all about interludes in various albums, which we could do.
Interesting. I know there's a Panic at the Disco interlude, so definitely would be putting that on my list.
Oh, there's I know a load of interludes or skits, especially in rap albums.
Yeah.
But maybe we could do that somewhere down the line. I don't know. We'll see.
Interesting.
But yeah, and a night in Tunisia is the song which takes a number 2 spot, kind of, even though it's not really number 2. It just is because I put it in that order when I sent it through.
Yeah.
My number 3 also actually holds a special place to me from a performing perspective, and that is Morocco by the Rippingtons and Russ Friedman. Now, this is very, very soulful. Like, I played the Gordon Goodwin arrangement. So Gordon Goodwin is famous for doing songs like The Jazz Police and Sing Sang Sung.
Oh, and I've heard of that. Okay.
He arranged Morocco, which is the one. The arrangement of which was the one we performed in my county youth jazz ensemble orchestra a few years ago, and it was one of the first songs that I really gelled with upon playing it. I was on the Barry sax again because I played the Barry sax for 6 days more than any of the other saxophonists in the group. I played it for 6 days, and I love there's a little lead in from the Barry sax parts, which sets the tone for the second part of the melody line per se, and for me I think it's a good representation of, like, again, a desert life, soulful night in Morocco. So I enjoy both versions, but the one which I've picked is the Gordon Goodwin arrangement just because of how special it is to me from a performing standpoint.
Interesting. I have to say, when I first listened to it, I actually just expected someone to start singing. Like, I expected singing to come in. It sounded to me...
I expected it as well.
Like, it sounded to me like a bit of a sort of... This isn't a diss to the song. I think the song's really cool, but it sounded a bit like a karaoke backing track, and I just expected something else to happen.
It does, actually. Now you say that, it does sound like, you know, one of those, like, those fake karaoke ones that people produce to avoid copyright. It does sound a bit like that.
Yeah.
I will accept that, but the saxophone line and the little twinkles, I'm not a massive fan of, like, glam twinkling instruments, but I think they work so perfectly in this song. And there's a guitar line as well, which just it's hard hitting, but it works so perfectly.
Yeah, and actually, one of the things I listened to when I listened to the very, very first opening, like, chords, I think descending chord bit in the very, very beginning, it sounded like a song called Betty Davis Eyes by Kim Carnes. I don't know if you've heard that. Just the very, very opening chords. I thought it was that song for about 2 seconds, and then I was like, oh no, he wouldn't have
despite
picked that.
Despite the fact that you've already seen the song name.
Because I put it on I added it to the queue, so I was just listening to it, and I thought that I'd queued up the wrong song by accident, and then I looked and was like, oh no, this is that song. As I got into it more, I was like, it's definitely not an 80s female song.
No.
You know? Like, it is very much not. But I really liked it.
Song.
Yeah. It is an 80s song, yeah. They both have the 80s pop vibe.
Yes.
Which is why I thought they were, like, the same song for a few seconds. Having said that, I did really like it, so I'm not dissing the song at all.
No, I can understand, because again, it is very typically 80s with the glam instruments and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But it was one of the songs I remember always. Whenever we were rehearsing, whenever I sat down to rehearse, whenever this song came out, we all, like, cheered because we loved it so much. It was one which every one of us just could not like, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that definitely does.
And so that's why again, it's important. I think it's important to me from my performing perspective as well, because again, it's one of the first songs I performed in a big band.
Yeah.
So it's a very good song in its own right. But yeah, Morocco by the Rippingtons, Russ Freeman with the Gordon Goodwin arrangements as well. It takes number 3. Now, number 4 is a song which, if you have not heard of it, then I don't know what rock you've been living under for the last 30 odd years. It is the Eagles' Hotel California. It is
classic.
I actually, again, I went through, like, all my songs that I've saved or ones that I thought of, and I went past this song. I thought, wait, hang on, I've missed out the most obvious choice in my entire list of Hotel California. And so I went back and I was like, right, I'm not removing this from my list. It's actually a song which I have arranged for a big band, shameless plug, and it was quite difficult to arrange the guitar interplay between the right instruments as well. But there is a guitar section at the end of it where it's 2 minutes of the two lead guitarists in the band basically exchanging 4-bar passages of guitar attacks on each other before they each combine at harmonic intervals at the end to just create this beautiful ending. And it was actually voted, I believe, by a few guitar magazines as the best guitar solo of all time, which I can understand. Yeah. But the song itself is quite cryptic because the meaning itself isn't really that widely known, but a lot of people speculated that it's to do with the world of fame, where you kind of get drawn into it. It seems all right, and then you realize that it isn't all what it seems. And then the lyric at the end of "you can check out any time you like, but you can never leave." It's almost like you can maybe dip and duck out of the limelight, but once you're in the spotlight, you can barely ever get out properly.
Yeah. I never really thought about that. My question was going to be, what is the story or the meaning behind the piece, or the song? But I guess you answered that. And that actually makes more sense now, relating it.
Yeah, I think they also said it's about it's like innocence to not innocence or something like that. But for me, from what I've heard from a few sources, and indeed my dad, who is very reliable when it comes to 70s, 80s rock music.
Yeah.
He basically says that the album as a whole is about the world of fame and how difficult it is to adjust to it. There's another one on there, New Kid in Town, which is very much the same, where all of a sudden someone comes in and they're the big cheese and they're all the ones that everyone's hyping up, but then someone else comes in and they just get completely forgotten and pushed to the side.
Yeah.
Because it's all about the new person that comes in and how good they are. So Hotel California, which is the title track of the Hotel California album, is therefore along the same lines, I think, of like going into the world of fame and struggling to actually remove yourself from it. And but in all, it's just a really well done song. It's the drummer that actually sings the vocals, as opposed to one of the guitars. They share around the vocals frequently, so it'll be the guitarist that does one, and then the drummer that does the next, then the bassist. So they're all talented vocalists in their own right. And this time it is the drummer, and he puts on a quite good performance, I'd say. But the music behind it is, again, so well layered that I couldn't not choose it. And, of course, it has California in its name. I guess they just chose it because it fitted with the word, with the lyrics scheme and stuff like that. And
also probably linking to the theme of, the fame and stuff. And a lot of people tend to go to California, and Los Angeles is sort of where the hub of like Hollywood is. I'm guessing it might have something to do with that. If that's what the theme is, that's what I was thinking.
Possibly. That's a good suggestion, actually. I've never really thought of that before. We're coming up with all kinds of conspiracy theories here on the Tune In podcast.
I mean, yeah, I'm only going off what you said. Like, I haven't actually done any research, but
that's actually a really good point. I hadn't really considered that before. But yeah, it's definitely a region which is linked to fame. So I can understand why you may think that you'll find the link between the two. So I think that's a great shout. Jeez, that's literally changed. That has changed a lot of how I thought about the song. But of course, it doesn't detract from how great a song it is in any way, shape, or form.
No.
Which is why it takes my number 4 spot. My number 5, I had to try and get something a bit rogue, a bit different in there. It is NWA's Straight Outta Compton. This is the archetypal song of gangster rap. It's very much it's a protest song. It's a song inciting violence. It's a song inciting, very regretfully, things like misogyny as well. But for me, it's the lyrics are extremely edgy, and no wonder NWA labeled themselves as the world's most dangerous group, which I do understand.
Yeah.
They actually got a warning from an FBI agent after their song about the police got released, whose title I cannot repeat on this podcast owing to explicit content. However, for me, the reason why I chose this, I like the song as a whole from my perspective, but it's also quite seminal because it's it's a song which changed the direction of rap, because beforehand it's very clean rap rock, things like Run DMC. They were in the mainstream at the time, and then all of a sudden this song comes along, and the whole mantra of rap really changes course, and then you get artists such as Tupac or Biggie or even Nas coming through into the mainstream over the next few years. And without this album, Straight Outta Compton, and perhaps this song, maybe the change would have happened a lot later on. So that's why I think personally, for me, it's going in at a high spot.
Yeah, I mean, I have a very different opinion, but who was surprised?
Yes.
But not necessarily for the reasons that you probably are thinking. I when listening to the song, obviously I was a bit taken aback, but I knew sort of what I was getting into.
Yeah, it's not going to be a nice, peaceful song, is it?
No, exactly. But I obviously, I've said this so many times, not a big fan of rap, but the rap that I am a fan of have some kind of clever lyrics and like wordplay, and like, I don't know, they have some kind of good rhyming scheme and stuff, and I just felt like it wasn't particularly, it might have been revolutionary in terms of style, but not particularly in terms of like lyrics. And for me, it just sounded like someone who found a rhyming word to put to the, found a word and then was like, oh, what rhymes with this, and then put it in another line.
I'm going to disagree with you.
Okay, that's fine.
Now, I'm going to disagree with you because you have to put it into context of the time that it was released too. This song was released in 1988, and this was about just under a decade after rap had broken into the mainstream. And the lyrics of the 80s, especially with artists like Run DMC, if you put them into 2016 or 2017 rap, for example, or even now, they would be laughed out the door. But you have to start somewhere, and that's the thing. It's the trailblazers. And whilst the lyrical content, again, like I agree with you on the fact that lyrical content isn't incredible in terms of the rhyme schemes. This was in the early days of rap. And of course you have, like, for me, like Ice Cube, the first rapper on the song, he's very brutal and he's very fiery, but I think that adds to the track really, really well. He was only a teenager actually when this song was recorded. So yeah, he was already doing better than I am. But in any case, like, I just think, again, if you put the lyrics from the 80s into now, they would be laughed out the door. But because they were released at that time, I think that you have to understand, again, that this was what the era was of rap. That the lyrics, whilst developed, they weren't as developed for wordplay and stuff like that as they are now. So that's just my... I understand where you're coming from, but I also disagree because again of the era that it's in, and you have to put it into that context.
Yeah, so putting it into the context, I obviously understand that rap was in the early days at that point, as in terms of mainstream rap was in early days. However, as I like listening to it now, obviously I don't like it, which is,
I'll try and find a rap song which you actually really like from a listening perspective. That's going to be my aim for the rest of this podcast. Is going to try and find a rap song which you really like.
Yeah, good luck. Hope you do well.
I will find one. I promise you I will find one. Because I have 3 or 4 in my mind already. But that's, of course, if we get to the themes in question that they could fall under. But yeah, so that is my personal top 5. So now I think we'll move into Sarah's top 5.
Yeah, very different to yours, but that's the reason we do the podcast.
As is to be expected.
Yes, of course. I don't have any honourable mentions, but so let's just get straight into the main list.
Sarah did it right, as opposed to me. He just got angry at myself.
My first song is a song called Nights of Sidonia by Muse on their album Black Holes and Revelations. Now, when I was thinking of, things I could pick for this, places wise, and I thought Nights of Sidonia. Sidonia must be a place, but I've never heard of it. So I looked it up, and it's actually a region of Mars, which I thought was super cool. So it's a place, but it's like not on Earth.
Really? I'd never have guessed.
Not shaming your places, but like where your places were like cities or countries.
Yeah.
Or places that existed on Earth. I thought I'd think outside the box and go for somewhere not on Earth. And this is definitely reflected in the music itself and the music video. This song has been like categorized as prog rock or space rock, which I didn't know was a genre, but apparently it is.
You can make a genre out of anything.
Yeah, to be fair. The interesting for the album in general, they have influences from bands such as Depeche Mode, Millionaire Lightning Bolt, and Sly and the Family Stone. And also half of it was recorded, I think, in Italy. Half the time they spent in southern Italy, so they got some inspiration from that music as well, which I thought was pretty interesting.
I can see that.
Yeah, but the song itself has musical like cues from mariachi bands. Music from spaghetti westerns, specifically Ennio Morricone, and actually the Doctor Who theme tune, which I was very surprised at. But then on a second listen, once I read that, I thought, oh, there's a little bit from Doctor Who in there. I see it, but yeah, the song itself has a sort of, and the music video has a Wild West, but then space post-apocalyptic vibe. Like instead of guns, they have laser guns. When the band plays in the saloon, they're on a hologram, and even like really small stuff like the sand on the ground is red, so it's like supposed to be like Mars rather than, you know.
Clever. I like that.
Earth.
Yes, I like that.
But yeah,
I enjoy. I've actually listened to a massive amount of Muse, truth be told, but I had listened to this song before, and it's great. I actually listened to the whole album just by pure coincidence yesterday, and when I was listening to it, I thought, you know what, this song actually is basically a combination or a actual proper conclusion to all the songs that had gone before. It was almost like it was building up to this moment. All the songs that had gone before had just been like, they've been slowly building and building and building and building, and then it reached Night of Sidonia, where it was just a collaboration of almost all of the 10 songs that had gone before. I thought that was quite cool. I definitely agree with that. However, I think my question is because there aren't many lyrics in the song, is it therefore primarily the music which keeps you interested in terms of the development or how it changes?
I mean, yes, I mean both, to be honest, but I think the music is so, it just has like constant drive forward. It sort of sounds like like a horse riding off into,
yeah,
like the Wild West kind of like horse.
That's how I always thought.
But it also has very unique sounds in it that sound space-like. And I think they're also constantly changing and not quite knowing exactly where it's gonna go, I think keeps me like interested.
Yes. Rather
than having it just constantly linear. And like I think having done these couple of episodes, I think from the sounds of it, like you seem to like things that develop in terms of adding layers, and like for the longer songs, that's what I've noticed. Whereas I like things, so when I'm like last week when I mentioned Bohemian Rhapsody and this, I like things that are constantly changing and you can't predict where they're going to go.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah,
fair enough.
And I think this song does it.
Yeah, this song does it very well. Night of Sidonia is wonderful to listen to because again, as you say, it changes all the time, and it's not one thing that stays all the way through.
Yeah.
So that's what I think drew my attention when I listened to it again.
And I also think that having like not many lyrics makes the lyrics that they say more
integral.
I'm trying to avoid using the word powerful.
Integral?
But makes them stand out more and makes it definitely. And then so the focus is on the music because they are very, very talented musicians and like classically trained and everything, so they know what they're doing when they're writing stuff like this. But then it makes the lyrics stand out a lot more and has a stronger impact, which I think was the point.
Fair enough.
Of the song. They're very visual with their shows and their music videos. Most of their music videos have stories that go along with them. This one has, as I said, a very Wild West, but also post-apocalyptic space theme. If you're into that, I highly recommend it. It's really entertaining. It's a good watch.
I highly recommend it too.
Okay, my second one is very different to Muse. And it's Good Morning Baltimore from the musical Hairspray, which is my favourite musical of all time.
Is it?
It's very entertaining, and in my opinion, there is not one bad song in the whole soundtrack. I think it is incredible. A little bit of background on it, which I thought was pretty interesting. Everyone probably knows the 2007 film with like John Travolta in it and Zac Efron. However, the original film was from 1988, and then it was made into a musical. But there was also the Hairspray live version, I think in America in 2016, that had Harvey Fierstein and Ariana Grande in it. As sort of, it had some pretty cool people in it. But the version I've picked is sung by Nikki Blonsky, which is from the 2007 film version, which is personally my favourite version. Maybe because I grew up watching it, or I don't know, but I just think she nails the character pretty well in that song. But yeah, if you don't know the musical, brief synopsis. It's set in Baltimore, which is in Maryland in the US, in 1962, about Tracy Turnblad, who's a sort of plus-size girl trying to make it onto this show called the Corny Collins Show, which is her local teen dance show. And it's also got a really heavy fixation and storyline of the racial segregation of the time in America. It's a good representation of the time as well. I think it shows the history pretty well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Considering my choices beforehand and also my things that I've had before, you could probably guess what my opinion of this song is, because I do not like musicals. Now I have nothing against the performing side. I think the actors do a very good job. I think the musicians do a brilliant job. But I think the words and the music that they have to perform or play are not. And I think it's because, in my opinion, it's very cheesy, it's vapid, and it's very typical from a musical standpoint and a lyrical standpoint too. And of course, there has to be a key change, because there always seems to be key changes in every single musical at some point for no reason whatsoever. But I think my question to you, after completely slating it again, is how would you spin this song in a positive light to someone like me who is not a fan of musicals or songs of this ilk?
Ooh, well, that is a good question. I don't know if I necessarily would. I don't think this is necessarily the best example if you don't like musicals. I'd maybe point you in a different direction. And actually, there's a song that I'm coming on to in stuff I've been listening to this week that's from a musical that I probably would point you in the direction of. But I guess turning someone like you, who is musically minded and knows stuff about music, to the sort of nuances and stuff within the song that you might go, oh, that's actually quite clever, or like that's quite integral to the story. So like, I think this song in general, Tracy as a character is a very joyful, loving character who always sees the good in people and sort of wants everyone to be her friend. And this song very much portrays that, not just in the lyrics and what's happening on the screen, but also within the sort of optimistic key changes and can't think of any good examples, but little nuances within the songs and
okay,
like word painting and stuff.
Okay.
So I think I'd point you in that sort of direction.
Okay, see, I'm happy with the word painting side of things, but upon first listen, I was just like, yep, it's already typically musical, it's already very cheesy, it's already very just vapid and trite, and so I just thought, okay, I'm not overly keen on this at all, but
yeah.
I wouldn't say that I can't be swayed, because again, I have full respect to the people who actually carry out the jobs and the acting really well. I have full respect to them, as well as the music side of things as well. But it's just the stuff which they have to perform is not up my street.
Yeah, and I think that's okay. I think this song is sort of the height of cheesiness, especially, I mean, the whole musical's pretty cheesy, but it's got some really important messages in it wrapped up in this nice, like, optimistic, colourful, like, 60s vibe and this really cheesy musical vibe, which is why I love the musical itself.
Right, okay.
But I don't disagree with you. I do think it's quite cheesy. But, I mean, I love that, and I sort of sing it around the house all the time. It's one of those things that you just, when you sing it, you have to, like, properly belt it. I think that's why I like it as well.
Fair enough.
We'll move on to the third song now. And this was sort of my tenuous link to the theme. This song is called Mighty River. Because it's a river.
Tenuous.
It's a place. There's a place, it's a river. It's my theme, so I get to decide what counts and what doesn't.
All right.
This is by a band called Koala. Not Koala, spelled Kawala.
Typical indie spellings of main words.
Okay, let them live. They can do what they want to do. It's on their EP, Do It Like You Do. It was their first EP. And what I found when there wasn't much research on this, it's not a particularly well-known song. I couldn't really find anything to do with what the song was about or, you know, kind of where they got their inspiration from. But this song was released on the EP officially in 2018, but there is a live version on YouTube from 2015. And the band themselves, they're like based in London, but they formed together when studying at Leeds College of Music, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
The song itself is it's quite indie, quite alternative vibe. If you don't like that, that's perfectly fine. I don't expect you to like the song. It's a fairly simple song in terms of lyrics. There's like one bit that's repeated, but things are added. So the first time it's just guitar and one vocalist, and then there's more. The second time it comes in, there's more complex things added, and there's actually two vocalists in the thing, so they make really good use of vocal harmonies, and I think that's what I really like about them, is the fact they have the two vocalists. They don't just use like your classic third harmonies like in thirds and they just move around. They use different, it sort of sounds a bit like different lines that fit together really, really well, and that's what I like about it.
See, I thought it was when I listened to it, I thought, again, it's very sparse, it's very minimalistic, but I agree with you on the harmony front. I thought it was very much like Simon and Garfunkel harmonies, where they kind of, they sing lyrics, or they sing the lyrics, obviously, at varying intervals, which work really well. Yeah. So sometimes they'll be in thirds, sometimes they'll be in fourths, sometimes they'll be in fifths. I think the one which I can think of straight off the bat when the comparison is He Was My Brother by Simon and Garfunkel. But I think that's as soon as the second focus came in, I just thought, yeah, this is very Simon and Garfunkel influenced. Which I must stress, is not at all a bad thing, because they are brilliant.
No, I do agree with you. I think if you want something that's more upbeat version of what they do, more sort of their style, maybe listen to the title of that EP, Do It Like You Do. It's just fun music to listen to, have a little dance to. Yeah. It's very summery. It's very nice.
Very appropriate for now.
Exactly, when it's too hot.
Have you mentioned that yet?
It's too hot. Yeah, no. I think that sort of better reflects their style, but this song obviously don't discount it. Like, it's still good, but it is very sparse. Yeah. And it's more relaxed. So yeah. If you're into that, obviously give it a listen. I'll move on to the fourth song now, or piece, should I say. This is a piece called The Wailing Wall. It's from the film Murder on the Orient Express, composed by Patrick Doyle, who I did mention last week because he did the soundtrack for Brave.
Okay. We have to mention. Are we just in a continuous cycle of mentioning Disney every episode now?
Oh, I mean, don't speak too soon. You haven't seen my other answers to things, but this is probably no. He's quite well known in the film music.
That's fine.
Circle. But anyway, the film itself was released in 2017, and it had an absolutely star-studded cast. It, for example, it had Kenneth Branagh in it, Johnny Depp, Judi Dench, Daisy Ridley, Michelle Pfeiffer, just loads and loads of incredibly talented actors. And obviously if you don't know, if you haven't heard of Murder on the Orient Express at all, it's an Agatha Christie novel, so it's a murder mystery on the Orient Express, on the train.
Shock horror.
Yeah. But in terms of the location itself, the Wailing Wall is in the old city of Jerusalem, and it's just a small section of the wall that's called the Western Wall. Interesting. And it started construction in 19 BC, which I thought was super interesting. It's like a massive piece of history just in the middle of the city. And a lot of people go there, either it's tourist attraction, people take pictures of it, or people go there to worship it and pray in front of it, you know.
Yes.
The scene itself is it opens up with them praying in front of it, which has the very calm opening music with the traditional instruments.
Yeah.
And then suddenly there's a little boy that runs out, and then it starts to pick up and get a bit more frantic, and he's running back to the hotel to give Poirot the perfect eggs, as the scene is called.
Okay.
And then there's a pause in the middle of it where Poirot just goes, no, which means he's got the wrong eggs, and he has to run back out again and get more eggs.
Oh, that's
so
why there's is that why there's a
yeah.
pause?
Yeah.
Oh, that makes more sense now.
It's for Poirot to just go, no, and then they just run out again. The little boy has to run out and get him his eggs again.
Get it.
So it has that. I really, really like it because it uses motifs and intervals and even instruments associated with the sort of Jewish klezmer music, and also generally music from the Middle East.
To me, like there was a siren at the start which I definitely thought sounded like a train, which was quite a good link. And also, you might criticize me for this one, but I thought it sounded like a desert level in like a Mario game. I don't know why, but when I listened to it, I just thought it sounded like as soon as the music properly kicked in, I just thought this sounds like something that could easily be put into a Mario video game. Although, whilst I really enjoyed it, I was left. I think it's because I didn't place it in the context of the film. I was left wanting a little bit more, if I'm being perfectly honest. But having not seen the film but read the book, do you think this sets like a tone for what's to come in terms of the film?
Honestly, so in the film, it's the very, very opening scene. It's the first thing that happens, even before the title sequence.
Yeah.
It comes literally before any talking. I'm pretty certain it comes before literally anything happens. It does a good job at setting the background and opening up Poirot as the protagonist, as like the detective. If you don't know, he's the he's the detective.
It's Poirot and Miss Marple.
That ends up on the train. Yes. But I think it doesn't necessarily set the tone for the film because it's all set on a train, or it doesn't open up to like any murders, any crime solving, but I think it does open up Poirot as a character, and it's just a bit to like set the very opening of the film.
Okay.
I think personally, I think more going ahead, like the second scene and third scene, and that opens up the story a bit more. Then you find out that he has to go on the train, and then he meets all the characters, and obviously you meet them one by one, and they do something a bit dodgy, you know, as they always do, make you think it's always them. Yes. But obviously that hasn't happened yet. So I guess in terms of setting the scene for the storyline, no, but setting the scene to then set the scene for the storyline, if that makes sense.
You set things up almost. It's like an assist.
Yeah. Yes, definitely, because it is the very opening. It's the first thing you see. It's got to have some kind of impact, and then something that makes you question, oh, who is this character? Who, you know, what's going to happen now? Like, it sets you up to become interested in the film, if you like.
Yes. Okay. That makes sense.
I mean, if you haven't seen the film, it is worth a watch.
Okay.
It's really good. Even if you know the story, even if you have read the book and you know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's worth a watch.
Never judge a book by its film, though. Just saying.
No. Although I personally haven't read the book, but people who have read the book and seen the film say it's a very, very good version of the book. So I think it's worth a watch.
Okay.
And with that, we'll move on to my final song, which is Walk Like an Egyptian. However, because I wanted to pick stuff that maybe you hadn't heard, I didn't choose the original. I chose a cover of the song by an artist called Jade Bird, which she recorded on her Spotify sessions in 2018. If you don't know, the Spotify sessions, they take an artist that record their sort of latest single, and then they also do a cover of a song, and this happened to be her cover. It's a cover of a song by The Bangles that was released in 1986. But yeah, a little bit of background to the song. It was written by a guy called Liam Sternberg, who got the idea, which I thought was pretty interesting, the idea from people on a ferry who were trying to keep their balance, and as doing that, they looked like they were walking like an Egyptian. You know,
okay.
with like the arms and elbows and wrists bent. Yeah, so then he was like, oh, walking like an Egyptian, that'd be an interesting song. And I think for me, an interesting fact was it was turned down by Tony Basil, who sung the song Mickey. I don't know if you know that song.
I don't actually.
I'm not going to sing it. That would be atrocious.
Right.
But then, so it was turned down by her, but then it ended up becoming one of the Bangles' most famous songs, which I thought was pretty interesting. So there was a chance that they weren't going to get it.
Okay.
But in terms of Jade Bird, the reason I picked a cover and not the original, I love the original, don't get me wrong, it's an absolute classic. But I think Bird does the song justice, as well as putting this modern spin on it and her own spin, her own twist to it, like with the instruments and stuff being quite different. She's picked up the tempo a bit, and she's raised the key a little bit just to suit her range a bit more, but I think it adds her character and her flavour to it. So that's why I picked her version.
Okay, yeah, I was on the fence with this one. I did think they were a bit, whereas like this, quite distorted guitars, I wasn't 100% sure if they were necessary within the theme of the song. But I thought I'd ask, does the live element of this song make it better?
I think yes. And in terms of her voice, it has a very raw energy to it.
Okay.
Which is which I think adds her spin to this song. Otherwise, covering a song that sounds exactly like the original, I think, in my opinion, is kind of pointless. So having it live makes it kind of more raw, more like authentic. If you listen to her song I Get No Joy, which is the first song I ever heard by her, you can sort of see where her influences come from in this cover. But yeah, I think the live element adds to the authenticity of her voice and her influence on the song.
Yes, I agree with that. I think it has got a natural sound. I'm not a massive fan of the original. It's all right, but it's. Should I just leave?
Blasphemy!
Should I just leave?
No.
But yeah, like it's all right.
I mean,
it's all right, but it's not amazing.
I don't necessarily think it's better than the original.
Right.
But I do think that she does a really, really good job at it, and not just repeating what's already been recorded. Yes. Which is why I included it. But do listen to the original, because it is a good song. The Bangles are amazing.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So that is Sarah's top 5.
Okay, so now we'll move on to the question section. We've got a couple of questions submitted from Maddie, so thank you very much, Maddie. We really, really appreciate it. So, our first question that we got is, what musical genre or style would you like to be a skilled performer in, and why?
So let Sarah go first on this one.
It was a really interesting question. My answer would probably be musical theatre, I think.
Really?
Because I think, really interesting answer. I think being in a musical seems really, really fun. And also that there's a lot of different genres within that to try. And a lot of different characters to play. I just think it seems like a really, really fun, life to have, is to be a musical theatre actor.
Yeah, that's the thing. No, I agree with that, because even though, like, for me, even though I don't like listening to musicals, I've always thought I could maybe give it a go. Because I love acting. I absolutely love acting. Little known fact. And so I love the idea of performing in it. So you can call me hypocrite all you want, but that's just my thing.
No, that's totally fair enough. Yeah, what would your answer to that question be, Harry?
So mine is, I'd say, one of two. And I am going to go with being able to rap. Now, I know this is quite basic, but I have always admired people who have a really strong pen game. And I hate the fact that I cannot write lyrics. I could be able to produce music in a couple of genres, be it rap, be it electronic, I think. But I couldn't write the lyrics. So I'd always be deterred from being like a rapper or a singer because I couldn't write my own lyrics. So that's why that'd be my choice. Although being able to play the piano extremely proficiently comes a very close second, because I always get jealous when people can waltz across the keys, no pun intended, and I'm just here trying to put one finger in front of the other.
Yeah, I mean, going back to the rap thing, I've always admired people who do like rap or even like spoken word. I think that is a real skill that I'd probably like to have as well, to be honest. I agree with your answer. It's
like when people come up with all these different like wordplay options and rhyme schemes and all that stuff, and I just think, my God, how on earth did they? I was like, how on earth did they think of it? But like, I could never ever come up with anything close to that at all.
Yeah,
that would be like my personal choice in that question.
Yeah,
it's honestly, Maddie, that's an amazing question, and it took me a lot of thought to think through.
Yeah, and our second question, is just as good. If you could master any instrumental or vocal solo, what would that be, and then why? So I've got a couple of answers for this one. My first one, as you said, would be probably something on the piano, because I do play the piano, but I have really small hands. My range is an octave. I can't go anywhere further than that. So I'd love to play probably something Rachmaninoff, because he was notorious for having massive hands and writing stuff with like tenths and more ranges in one hand. And my favourite Rachmaninoff piece is his Piano Concerto No. 2, probably his most famous, but I love it. So probably that, just the whole of it, I think is good. Yeah. Or in terms of vocal solo, I'd like to, again, going along with the musical theatre, I don't even like Wicked that much, but I would like to master the whole of Wicked as Elphaba. I think it's a really difficult part to play, and especially her bit in, I say, if it's a specific solo, then the bit in Defying Gravity. There's a lot of high notes in there, and there's a lot of difficult passages in there that I'd like to master if I ever sing. So yeah.
Yeah, musical theatre, again, I probably just want to do, like, I don't know, just a cool male or female part. I'm not fussed. Androgynous, why not?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's a good answer. I'm happy. I agree with you on that one. But mine is much more specific, I think. And it is, in terms of, answering this question, mine is the guitar solo from Comfortably Numb by Pink Floyd.
Ooh, yeah.
Now, for those who don't know, I'm not going to go too much into this, but basically it's from the album The Wall, which is a concept album about a budding rock artist. And this is inspired by Roger Waters' story of being forced to go and play a gig basically on things like painkillers after he had suffered an accident in a show. And the lyric and the whole song kind of builds up to this. And the solo itself, whilst it's not particularly challenging in terms of a technical standpoint, it's the emotion, it's the settings of distortion and delay, and it's just all of these elements just built into it. It's just such a perfect solo, and I would love to be able to perform it. Like, basically, it's inimitable, completely inimitable, but if there was any way I could replicate its emotion and its authenticity, then yes, please. That would be my preferred option.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good answer, yeah.
Like, being able to play that absolutely perfectly on the guitar would be my absolute dream in terms of learning to play a solo and playing it exactly how it was.
Yeah. No, I definitely... Good answer, yeah.
It's a great answer.
So, yeah, thanks again. Thanks again, Maddie, for those questions. They were really, really interesting questions that I think we had both had to think a lot about.
Yeah, I had to think a bit about the first one. I think the second one, as soon as I said it, I was like, yep, I know exactly which song it is.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
But But again, it's like for loads of people. Like I asked my dad this, and he took ages to try and think of the songs he wanted to do or perform under that category. So it's a really, really good question. It's just that I kind of always knew I wanted to learn how to play that solo properly.
Yeah.
So that was why
I had no idea. So
fair enough. Each their own.
Yeah. Okay, with that, we move on to our final section, which is just songs we've been listening to this week, and we think you should too. So, Harry, would you like to go first this week?
Yeah, why not? I'll go first. So, for whatever reason, I don't quite know why, but I seem to be going through a synth pop phase, and 2 of my songs are synth poppy. One of them is Chvrches' Bury It, which is from their album Every Open Eye, which is a fantastic album. If you haven't listened to it, go and listen to it. But pause this recording, go and listen to it, and then come back again. No, actually, no. Listen to the end of this, and then go and listen. But yeah, it's a synth pop with really clean production and a really cool melody line. Lyrics are a little bit simplistic, but I just really like how it all bonds together really well. And then the other one is Empire of the Sun's Alive. Now, I actually remember hearing this song a few years back and feeling a bit scared whenever I listened to it. I genuinely don't know why, but it's the opening bit to the song which I always used to get a bit of chills from. I honestly don't know why. I was weird. But it's again a synth pop song with again like almost like a children's choir during the verses, and then a drop kind of thing in the chorus, but it's quite well developed and quite catchy. I think it's quite a cool song. And then my third song, which I've been listening to over the last week, is the Brothers Maklavich's Give Love to Get Some. This is a collaboration between A-Track and Dave One. A-Track famous for being a part of Duck Sauce, and Dave One being a part of Chromeo. And they're two brothers, obviously, as you might have guessed, and they've combined the turntable style of A-Track and the funk style of Dave One to bring together Give Love to Get Some featuring Levin Kali. And it's a cool piece, which it doesn't really have like any development per se, but it's just a lovely song with a great brass line to listen to. So I've been jamming to that a lot this week. And my final one is Half Alive's Still Feel. It's quite motivational lyrics. It's quite upbeat. Again, more synth pop. We're back into this phase again. And it's just a really cool song to listen to. Again, it's about going from self-doubt to believing in yourself as much as possible. And whilst those lyrics can sound a bit cheesy, in my opinion, the production behind it is really crisp, clean, and quite cool. So those are some of, but of course not all, of the songs that I have been listening to, which I think could actually be quite cool for you guys to listen to as well. Especially Give Love to Get Some. I definitely recommend checking that out, especially if you're a fan of A-Track, which I am.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Songs that I will listen to. I mean, I love the Chvrches song, but I will give the other synth pop songs a listen as well. And now for they'll
definitely be right up your street, I think.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. Now my list is a little bit shorter, but going off of, I got into a bit of a musical theatre sort of vibe this week, as you can probably tell. And I rewatched on YouTube some of the Team Star Kid musicals. I'm not sure if you've heard of these, but basically they were back in the day, they were a group of college students who wrote, produced and starred in their own musicals, and they put them on YouTube, and they got quite a big following.
Wow.
So they're not completely professional, but they sound like it. So they're incredibly talented. The one that I've picked to talk about is the musical Twisted. This is where the Disney comes in. It's basically the story of Aladdin from Jafar's point of view.
Oh, brilliant.
Aladdin's basically just not a very nice person who steals from innocent merchants. Basically, Jasmine's just a bit clueless and will go with the first guy that shows her any attention. And Jafar's actually a nice guy who's just completely misunderstood. The song that I've picked is the opening song. It's called Dream a Little Harder. And even if you don't watch the musical, if you listen to this, I think you'll kind of understand the story. it's just really funny. There's a lot of funny jokes in it, and a lot of like taking stabs at the Disney logic of like, you know, all you need is a little bit of magic and to be really attractive, and then you can have what you want. Which is kind of, I don't know, it's pretty funny. Even though I love Disney, I also love this musical. I also recommend like pretty much any of their musicals that they've ever done. If you like that one, you'll like a lot of the others. They're all very, very funny, all very witty, and the music is, I think, exceptionally well written. And my final one, basically my sister got me listening to a few K-pop songs. I think she wanted to try and get me into some K-pop. I'm not a massive K-pop fan. I think, okay, don't be so quick to judge. I don't like K-pop particularly. I don't like the standard K-pop, you know, music. However, she played me this one song. I think she was determined to find a K-pop song that I did like, and she succeeded. There's a song called Instagram by Dean. It's basically, it has those kind of indie pop vibes for like Western music, but it's just in Korean. Like, the language for me isn't an issue. Like, it wasn't the language I didn't like. It was the sort of very formulaic verses, chorus, dance break, verse, chorus, dance break, bridge, chorus, you know, and it was a lot, and it was like, but every single K-pop song seemed to do it. But then she played this song, and it was very, very different. And he has a really, really unique voice. Okay. But it sounds just like something I would listen to, but it just happens to be in Korean. But I think it's really, really worth a listen if you are like me and you're like, ugh, K-pop, no. But you like the indie stuff.
So a bit like me then.
Yeah, but I think it is definitely worth a listen. Also, the music video is a bit weird if you watch that, but it's very minimalistic and it's very artsy, and I think I really like that as well. So if you want to give that a watch, I recommend that.
Of course, all of these songs will go into a Spotify playlist, which you can check out by clicking on one of the links that we'll provide on the Facebook or the YouTube video. So go and give all of the songs that we have mentioned in this episode a listen and form your own opinions. We're not saying that you have to like or dislike or love or hate any of them. You can form your own opinions. We're just bringing our own variants to the table and creating a nice little melange of styles, genres, and influences. Yeah. So, guess this is the aim of this podcast, really. But
exactly.
Exactly. But that just about wraps up this week's show. We've actually managed to cut it down by quite a significant amount of time. But that has been this week's episode, obviously on the theme of places, as well as two brilliant questions and what we've been listening to over the last week. Now, next week is actually going to be a bit different. We promised that every third episode would be a musical year. And so we will be doing a year in music next week, as you might have guessed by that. Now, we haven't decided which one we're going to do because we're very organised, but we will do over the course of the week, and you'll find out what year it is when you tune in next week. But that is going to be it for now. Thank you very, very much for listening. We hope you have enjoyed it as much as we have. And until next time,
we'll see you then.